Uf. Streaming del palito sin palito. No, no, no. ¿Qué gráfico es ese? Pues métete. Métete en el Discord y lo ves. Exclamación Discord. Eh. No, quería ver ya las cartas. Están saliendo las primeras cartas. Entonces, las primeras cartas ya están saliendo, pero ya teníamos cartas anteriores. Entonces, yo que sé, ha salido esta mierda. Que esta mierda es totalmente injugable, inhumana, malísima. Bueno, bien. Lo bueno es que no lo has hecho. Pero si llega a costar 2 manás y es un 2-2, ¿con este texto qué? Pues venga, un saludo. La tiene Fede, Fede es Ferre. Un saludo. Por 5 un 3-4. Cuando juegues un instantáneo conjuro, elige uno. Ese hechizo gana de Touch y Lifelink o crea un 2-2 rojo imp con cuando esta criatura muera, hace daño a cada oponente. O sea, de las mayores mierdas que se ha visto en este streaming, ¿eh? Mamma mía. Acojonante, ¿eh? ¿Qué? Hmm. Tranquila, cariño, no te muevas. No te muevas que estarás agotado. Que me ponga este stream, que te ponga yo. ¿Seguro? Eso está frío y va de para afuera. ¿Cómo voy para atrás? Todo aquí, ¿no? ¿Tu casa o tu casa? ¿Por qué sale eso un vídeo de presentación mientras estás ausente? Porque no tienes un vídeo de presentación. Sí, tengo. Ah, pero tengo, pero no sé. ¿Y por qué no sale? Qué bonito es el elefante este. Ah, mira, ya se está saliendo mucho. ¿Me trae los hijos de la habitación que no tienen sal?
Chicos.
Gracias. Creo que con retraso.
Como siempre, ¿no? Pero como siempre, ¿no?
¿Qué está hablando?
Malos.
Algo bueno.
¿Esta carta es buena? ¿Te lo aporto o no?
¿Decía buena esta?
¿Te lo aporto?
¿La ibas a encerrar?
Voy a contar en el stream, yo que sé. ¿Qué pasa? A mitad de otro gato, ¿qué va? Bueno. Buenas tardes a todos. Vamos a ver qué hacen las cartas de este set. A mí este bicho me parece bastante bueno. Así, para empezar. Por 3 un 3-3, vigilancia investigas. Y que luego hace revelación comiéndote una club. No sé si era la mejor del set, pero vamos. Sin más. Ya sé, los spoilers empiezan a las 6. Estoy viendo las cartas que ya conocíamos, que yo pues no me acordaba. Este dicho bastante bueno, ya te digo, joder. Pero bastante bueno. ¿Para esto dejas de hacer lo que estás haciendo? Sí. Stream de los spoilers con pipas. No, es que estaba mirándolo de las presentaciones. Metropolis 35 es muy caro, ¿no? Menos de 35 las hemos puesto nosotros. ¿Cómo es un ahorro en mi granja después de MKM? Pues puede ser. A ver, el alquimista profit este es brutal. Vamos a leer el rat 2. Por 6 un 6-6. Vuela roya. Ojo. Al comienzo del paso final es decir que según entra hace cosas. El oponente objetivo puede sacrificar 2 non-token permanentes. Si no lo hace, tú robas 2 cartas. Joder. No sé, ¿eh? A menos, para hombre, un coste 6 para Modern, obviamente no es. Vale, Aurelia. De lo a Baude. Por tengo un 4-4, vuela, vigilancia, prisa. Hostias. Vuela, prisa ya es bastante tocho. Y luego ya vigilancia ya es aún más loco. Cuando un jugador ataque con 3 o más criaturas, tú robas una carta. Hostia, esta carta es brutal, ¿no? O sea, a ver. O sea, por tengo un 4-4. Muy bien. Por tengo un 4-4, vuela, vigilancia, prisa. Cuando un jugador ataque con 3 o más criaturas, tú robas una carta. Es decir, cuando tú o el otro, cualquiera de los dos pegue, robas una carta. Y cuando un jugador ataque con 5 o más criaturas, vale, es que lo de las 5 más criaturas ya en principio ha ganado o está remontando. Es que de ahí puedes remontar incluso, ¿eh? Hombre, el Commander tiene que ser demencial este bicho. Lo que pasa es que normalmente el Commander no hay mucho combate, ¿no? No pegan 3 bichos y tal, se supone. La Aurelia esta, ojo, ¿eh? Me gusta la Aurelia.
Digo, ¿te gusta Aurelia? Vete con ella.
Cinco pavos me parece un poco caro. La verdad. Pero puede ser, ¿eh? esta mierda cuando sale. La presentación es el 2 de febrero. Por favor, acción, que sí, hombre, que sí, que estamos en ello.
Exigente.
Todo el rato, macho, exigiendo, ¿eh? Vale, ya tengo puesto aquí esto. Vale.
Ay,
Wojek Investigator. Por 3124 vuela vigilancia. Me mola que haya un montón de bichos con vigilancia. Porque, claro. ¿Sabes por qué tienen vigilancia? ¿Nerea?
porque están mirando a ver quién ha sido el asesino.
Porque son detectives, claro, están vigilando, eso es. Joder, que ¿cómo sabes? Increíble. Sí. Buena vigilancia al comienzo de tu mantenimiento. Investiga por cada oponente que tiene más cartas en mano que tú. Esto se lo bajas al amigo de Ontana este y ya bajas con un par de pistas, A la Yala. Esto se lo bajas a la Yala y ya tienes que poner mínimo un par de pistas. No, ya, no se activa, no. Era porque es un tío que es un tramposo. Es porque es un tío que es un tramposo. Judas Antanema. Perdona. Sí, cuando entra en juego no activa. Lo decía porque el tío es un tramposo y siempre tiene 1000 cartas en mano. Por 2, la criatura objetivo tiene +3/+3 y traerlo hasta el final del turno. Bueno, tipo de carta de límites, truco de combate. Curious Cadáver. Por 4 un 3-1 vuela. Cuando tú sacrifiques un club, regresa al cementerio a tu mano. Vale. Por 5-4-5 prisa, cuando tú ataques con 3 o más criaturas, investiga. Vale. Lightning Helix. Esto ya lo hemos hablado. Lightning Helix esta...
Pepino.
Juego pepino. Además que solo hay una versión de Lightning Helix. Que solo se puede jugar una versión de Lightning Helix.
La de nuestro mazo de Cunningham versus Speed.
No. Solo hay una hélice de relámpagos que se puede jugar. Y es esta. Si no es esta hélice, si no vas a jugar esta carta,
No será si tiene dinero.
solo hay una hélice de relámpagos.
Pero esa no hace nada.
¿Pero se va a poder jugar esta edición en Pioneer? Claro. Sí. Claro, este set es legal en tipo 2. Salen 2 semanas. Mira, la gente en el chat como tú, ¿Cómo vas a jugar esta si no hace nada?
Paga todo para nada. No entiendo.
También se puede jugar la de San Valentín. ¿Cuál es la de San Valentín? ¿Cuál se supone que es la de San Valentín?
Oye, esa negra y roja es bonita, ¿eh?
Ah, era el Boros Charm, vale. ¿Esa la cuál? ¿Cuál?
Papo.
Estas son las que tengo yo en la Burn.
Esa es bonita.
Mira, justo. ¿Por dónde he cortado?
La de Taku dice Medrano.
Qué grande eres, Topper. Tú sí que eres grande, Dragonard. Un saludo. Salvándome la tarde. Venga, un saludo a todos los salvadoreños. Saludo. Pues sí, un poquito de spoilers. Bueno, vamos a seguir. La Lightning Elite, ya hemos dicho, solo hay una versión. No durante mi guardia, por 2. Exile la criatura atacante objetivo. Esta mola. Deducir. Esta carta me encanta. O sea, esta carta... Yo creo que esta carta es modern playable, ¿eh? Easy.
¿Te parece a Lil Nas ese?
¿Ah?
Lil Nas X.
Lil Nas X.
Uy, se me ha traducido. Mira, te la están poniendo en el chat.
¿Y este se parece a quién?
Mira, la foto esa te parece. ¿Te parece o no? A mí sí me parece.
¿Pero qué estáis drogados?
No parece por ser negro, se parece porque tiene el mismo pelo y la barba.
Te lo gastas tú que le haces caso. Es el amor.
O sea, a mí sí me recuerda.
Esta carta se va a jugar en Modern. Un saludo.
¿Pero a qué?
¿Qué?
¿Qué hace?
Por 2 instantáneos, robas una carta y pones un clue. Que sí, hombre, sí, que esto te pone un objetivo para el... Para la creativity. Esto te pone un objetivo para la creativity. Se pichea para la subtetli. Se pichea para la font. Esta carta es brutal. Pero brutal. Pero esto es instant, amigo. Bueno, ya veremos. Melford Wizard, por 5, un 4-5. Cuando entre en juego o ataque, tú puedes sacrificar un artefacto. Si lo haces, roba una carta. Vaya maza. Burden of Proof. Esta carta en límite va a ser demencial. Burden of Proof, por 2. Flash. Encantar criatura. La criatura encantada tiene +2/+2 mientras sea un detective. O tiene un detective que tú controles. Ojo, que tú controles. Ojo. O se convierte en un 1/1 que no puede bloquear detectives. Es decir, esto es para ponérselo a los bichos del otro o a los tuyos para que sean más tochos. Bastante tocha esta, Bastante tocha. Para límites, Hablo de límites. Porque en este canal, no sé si estará Castillo, pero bueno, vamos a salsearle. Porque en este canal no decimos una mítica, hostia, esto es límites. Aquí eso no se dice. Hotshot Investigators. Por 6, un 4-4. Cuando entro en juego, regresa hasta una criatura a la mano de su propietario. Si tú la controlabas, investigas. ¿Se sabe por qué está en el modo de mantenimiento? No, no lo sé. Esto para límites también. 4-4 es muy fuerte, Es un bicho muy, muy fuerte. Outcloud. Por 4 instantáneo, este hechizo no puede ser contrarrestado. Esto incluye las habilidades de Word. Gira 2 criaturas y pon un contador de stun en cada una de ellas. Luego investiga. No está mal. Inspector novicio. Por 2 en 1, por 1 en 1 2. Oh, mira, un Traven Inspector nuevo. Vaya maza. Lead Pipe por 1, +2/+0. Cuando la criatura equipada muera, cada oponente pierde 2 vidas. Pagas 2 y sacrificas la pipa. Robas una carta y tiene que equipar 2. Este mola. El choque al bulto Demandar las respuestas.
Pipe significa tubería, no pipa.
Sí, bueno, he dicho lead pipe. No sé, lead tampoco sé lo que significa.
Pues que leas.
Vale. Demand answers. Esta carta me gusta mucho, ¿eh? Como coste adicional, sacrifico una carta o descarto una carta. O sea, sacrifico un artefacto, descarto una carta. Esta carta me parece brutal. Tubería de plomo. Hostia puta. De locos. Mejor la Deadly Dispute. Son distintas, ¿no? Bueno, veremos. Topiary Panther. Por 6165 arrolla que cuando... Ah, que tiene Basic Cycling. Por 2 te la descartas y te buscas una base y la pones en mano. Esta mola. Gafas magníficas. Por 3 artefacto pagas 1 y por 4 investigas. Una mierda. Las tierras. Pues no me quieren decir nada, sinceramente. Y va a haber Special Guesses. Ah, va a haber Special Guesses aquí también. Yes. ¿Se saben los Special Guesses que va a haber? Crashing Footfalls. Vale. Mola. Mola bastante. Vale. Bien. Pues nos quedan 20 minutitos. A ver. No sé cómo voy a rellenar 20 minutos de humo, la verdad. Tendré que estar en silencio todo el rato.
¿Vas a dormir ahí? Puedes estar en silencio todo el rato y recoger un poco esto. mismo aquí tienen negates. Pasa, encima que te ayudo. Se pica, se ha picado.
Tengo un código de Forgotten. ¿Quieres un código de Forgotten?
Sí.
Pues muy bien. No, ya he decidido que voy a hablar.
Ya te has cansado.
Me canso de estar en silencio haciendo el gilipollas.
Ahí tenías una isla.
Muy bien. Cuéntaselo a quien le importe.
Ahí tenías una isla.
¿Por qué me has pegado?
Por tonto.
Necesito un negate. Falta un negate, que Ferre no tenía más, solo tenía uno.
Yo tengo mucho.
Andrea, ya esto ya lo hemos hablado esta mañana. Si no lo tienes aquí, no me vale. Lo necesito antes. O sea, quiero dejar el mazo cerrado hoy. Pues vale. Yo creo que aquí en el mazo, en la UR de Alvarito. Ojo, 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 ojo. Ojo, 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 ojo. 10 minutos. 10 minutos quedan. Yo creo que en la UR de Alvarito puede haber, ¿eh? Puede haber negates en la UR de Alvarito. Pues no, ¿eh? Si hubiera tenido que apostar, hubiera apostado que sí, ¿eh? Que me parece tan absurdo que me falten negates. ¡Pum! Cuarto negate, ya está. Eso sí, voy a jugar los negates más feos de la puta historia, ¿eh? Mamma mía. Bueno, espérate, que ahora tengo ya aquí, ojo, que ahora tengo ya negates premium. Ojito, Ojito, Negates Premium, Vale. ¿Te puedo pedir un favor, cariño? ¿Me traes de mi abrigo Sí.
Espero que no sean estas.
¿No hay más?
Parecen foil y no son foil,
Pues no, bueno, de todas formas esas no eran.
Yo no veo más. ¿Tienes más bolsillos de lo que estoy viendo? No hay más.
Vale, voy a ver.
Yo a ver si no tengo el pecho abajo.
Ferre, no puedo jugar el tuyo firmado porque sería mi única carta foil en el mazo. Madre mía. Yo creo que no es ni legal. La verdad que qué cosa más horrible. De negates voy a jugar. Voy a jugar los negates más feos de la historia de los negates. Pues ya tenemos la infecta enfundada, La 75 del fin de ahí en nada, Hubo gente que me dijo que me dejaba cartas. Pues al final no he necesitado ninguna carta. ¿Quieres un código de un sobre?
Sí.
Lo que me van a faltar van a ser 2 perfect, Ojo, ojo, no. Aquí hay una. Aquí hay una perfect. ¿Qué mazo vas a jugar? Band Infect. ¿Ya sabes poner perfects? Bueno, se me siguen saliendo un poco. Pero la meto y la saco otra vez y ya está. No es el final de nuestros días. Ferre, tu negate de regalo no lo puedo jugar porque sería mi única carta foil. Lo siento.
¿Ya has encontrado perfect?
Sí. Se lo he quitado una llanura básica. Está guapa la band. Bueno. No sé si está guapa, pero... está bien. Por cierto, yo he descubierto que si has exiliado un bicho con el Annex of Sentry y luego lo blinqueas... Lo blinqueas, no, perdón. Lo haces pase out. El bicho se queda exiliado para siempre. Eso mola. La verdad. Eso está bastante bien. Una pregunta a tope. ¿Qué te parece el precio del Mirrex? En este canal la gente compró los Mirrex a 80 céntimos. Eso es lo que te puedo decir. $15 cartas de banquillo. Madre mía, mis 4 negates, Perfecto, yo también. La casualidad, tú estás en este canal siempre. 4 negates, El poder, Yes. $15, sí. Ya locos. Y ahora a ver. Bueno, vamos a ver los spoilers y luego le damos chicha a esto.
Societal collapse here on Ravnica. How did this get so out of hand? And who could be behind it? Well, worry not, because all will soon be made clear. In fact, the mastermind is here with us in this very room. That's right. One of these Ravnikins is responsible for everything. And I, Detective Alquist Proft, will prove it. It's quite simple, really.
La mansión, Ahí
Welcome
viene.
back to the cityscape of Ravnica. You'll need all your wits about you to unravel the mystery that's been building here. Crack puzzles, collect evidence, and identify suspicious individuals in order to discover who's
vamos a ver si
behind the
identificamos
series
cositas.
of grisly murders throughout the plane. The brilliant detective Alquist Proft recently announced that he has discovered the guilty party and invited everyone involved in the investigation to join him for the reveal. But which of them didn't? We will go over the events so far and attempt to discover the killer before Detective Proft can unveil the truth. Our story began in the wake of the Phyrexian invasion. When Phyrexia attacked, most of the Ravnican guilds united to repel the assault. With Phyrexia defeated, Ravnica has been eager to get back to normal. And what better way to demonstrate that the people's spirits remain unbroken than a big shindig at Karlov Manor? The host of the event was Teysa Karlov, guild leader, legendary aristocrat,
Por 3-1-2-3 Death Touch al comienzo de tu paso
During
final.
the Phyrexian invasion, she saved many lives by supplying key intelligence about the advancing armies. And so who could begrudge her for throwing a
Al
well-deserved
comienzo de
party?
tu paso final, investiga por cada oponente que perdió vida este turno.
Everyone else was trying to get in.
Cuando
One
una
featured
clue que
guest
tú
was an
controles sea
Orphan's
puesta en un
friend of
cementerio
Teysa's,
desde el
heroine
juego, crea
Planeswalker
un
Kaya.
1-1 espíritu blanco.
Since the Phyrexian defeat, Kaya has found herself back in her old stomping grounds. Reluctantly attending the party, she assessed the scene, looking for any reason to make her
Vamos
escape.
a ver.
In addition to celebrating a return to normalcy, the
Por
Carlyle Manor party served to
4,
cement
lo
a
ya
new
tras
status
3,
quo
cuando
by
una más
hosting
criaturas que
members
tú
of the Ravnica
controles.
Agency
Voy a
of
bajar esta
Magicological
mierda.
Investigations.
Cuando uno o más criaturas que tú controles o cartas en el cementerio sean puestas en el exilio, tú puedes hacer que una criatura de ellas vuelva siendo una copia de ella misma, siendo un token y con volar. Vale. Y luego tiene más 2, Surveil. Tu aventura por 4, un 3-4, vuela, vigilancia. Cuando ataque, destruye un tarjeta artifact. Si tú controlas este permanente, roba una carta. Investiga, tú puedes jugar una tierra adicional este turno. Ojo, el explore nuevo. El explore ese no está mal. Vale, la calla. La pasiva es lo que hace la calla normalmente, ¿no? Linkea un bicho y lo deja en mesa como copia, como volar. Surveil 2 y... Vale, carta de Limited. Surveil 2, luego exilia una carta de un cementerio. Más 1, crea un 1 espíritu token. Y menos 2, exilia la criatura que tú controles. Por cada jugador, exilia una tarjeta criatura que ese jugador controle. Hostia, la calle es bastante buena, ¿eh? La calle es bastante buena, ¿eh? Ahora la analizamos de nuevo, pero la calle es bastante buena, ¿eh?
The seemingly random coats underneath Sagana display the insignias of each of the guilds. Not a clue so much as an anti-clue or a pile of red herrings. But he also noticed that someone was wearing Selesnian colors without the appropriate sigil. A disguise. The new disguise mechanic imbues the game with a sense of mystery.
Por 4, un 4-2.
Under your opponent's upturned cards. Disguise allows you to cast cards face down, hidden so no other player knows what it is. Pay 3 to cast this spell, and it becomes a 2/2 creature with
es
Ward 2
un
and no
morph.
other abilities. You may turn it face up anytime you have
Con
priority by
guardos.
paying its disguise cost. This happens immediately, doesn't use the stack, and can't be responded to. That 2/2 creature your opponent thought was safe
Por
to
4, un
block is
4-2, vuela
actually an
Vindicator
angel.
guardos.
Perfect to
Cuando
fly
se ha
over for
puesto
some
boca
free
arriba,
life.
exilia X
But
cartas.
before
No he
Prof
visto.
could pull the
Donde X es
mysterious guest aside,
el
her
disguise
true
que pase.
identity was revealed.
Itrada is obviously guilty of the murder, and yet has no memory of
Por
killing
4,
Zagana.
un 3-4,
Clearly,
face
the
down,
roots
criatura
of
you
this
have.
case
Por
go much
4,
deeper than I
por la boca
initially
arriba.
suspected.
If you can't, exíliala.
Kaya was ready to leave the plane she once
No me da
called
tiempo a
home,
leerla.
but was summoned back to the scene of the crime at Karlov Manor. Teysa claimed to have something important to tell her. but
Vale,
by the
vale.
time
Oh,
Kaya
una tierra
arrived,
clue, ojo.
Teysa's body
Tierra
was
clue
already
artefacto,
cold.
ojo,
Another murder.
Elige
Kaya
uno o
discovered
las
a
dos.
note written in
Pero es una
Teysa's
criatura por
hand,
no
but
contar
the
una
script
criatura que
was Phyrexian.
se convierte
Was
no longer
Teysa working for them?
suspected.
And could there be another murderer on the loose? With these unanswered questions spurring her on and a dead friend to put to rest, Kaya took on the case.
Mamma mía.
Cases are a new mechanic that allows
Los casos,
you
a
to
ver.
experience the different steps as
Por
a mystery
uno,
unfolds,
cuando
just as a
este
detective
caso
would.
entra en juego,
Cases
investiga.
are quest-like enchantments with 3 abilities. The top ability is always active. The middle is a condition to solve the case, and the bottom a reward once you've solved it. Back at the agency, Kaya and Kellen bumped into Agris Koss.
Por 4, un 2-4, doble strike, vigilancia. Cuando Agus Cross entra en juego o ataque, elige una criatura. Es sospechosa, se convierte en sospechosa. Una criatura sospechosa tiene amenaza y no puede bloquear.
Which allows you to cast your well-honed detective eye at any creatures that looks like they might be up to no good. Suspected is a label that can be applied to a creature.
Vale.
A suspected creature has menace and can't block.
Cuando un asesino que tú controles haga daño de combate a un oponente, Cloak, the top card of Dark Library. ¿Qué cojones será
Kaya
Cloak?
and Kellen, beginning their investigation, went to speak to Judith of the Rakdos.
No,
Judith
Judith
was
este
present the
directamente
night of the
injugable.
Karlov Manor
Este ya lo
party.
habíamos visto.
Kaya was surprised she was even invited, and more surprised to learn that Judith had a disagreement with Teysa before her murder. Judith insisted that she was
La verdad que la
innocent,
historia que nos
but
están
didn't inform
contando
the
seguro que es
detectives that
interesante
they
y todo,
didn't have the whole story. She pointed them to the original guild pact at V2 Ghazi and promised that it would clarify things. Meanwhile, Proft had decided to go about things a little
Leyline of the
differently.
Guild Pact.
I have a
Leyline
new
of the
and
Guild
unlikely
Pact.
partner.
Dios.
Itrada. After all, who would be more motivated to clear her name?
Recordemos,
And
Ravnica
helps
original
to have
del
an
primer
assassin
ciclo de
on my
Leylines,
side as I untangle this thicket of clues and false leads.
Etrata and Alquist headed to the last place she remembered being before waking up at the party, one of her assassin-friendly hiding places. They discovered a fine yellow-gray powder dusting her bedside table and pillowcase. Their first major
Pick your
piece
poison,
of
elige tu
evidence.
veneno.
Collect evidence is another new mechanic. You can solve a mystery in your head, but nothing is as
Por 4
important as
4
hard
de
evidence when
tachaste
bringing the
guard
guilty
collect
to
for
justice.
evidence.
To
Cuando
collect
esta
evidence,
criatura
exile any number of cards from your graveyard with the total mana value of the indicated number or greater. Some cards even unlock alternative effects when entering the battlefield, if evidence was collected. As Alquist pondered the meaning of the powder,
¿Cómo?
he was attacked by
No me he
Massacre
enterado bien
Girl,
de eso,
an infamous
Creo que, o sea,
Rakdos assassin.
por 4
Thanks to
4 4
Etrata,
menas, las criaturas que tu
Massacre
controles
Girl
tienen
was
Wither,
sent
ojo,
packing.
las criaturas
But
que
who
tu oponente
would hire
controle
her to kill Prof?
con resistencia 1
And
menos roba
why?
una carta. Hostia puta, qué buena la Massacre Girl. Dios.
Kaya and
Dios.
Helen headed out into the wilderness, or as close as Ravnica gets
Es
to
buena,
wilderness,
la
to
niña
see the
Masacre.
new literal resting place of V2 Gazi.
Pues entra 3, discuse 3, la por favor boca abajo. Cuando se ha puesto boca arriba, añade 2 manas de cualquier color, no pierdes maná. Vale. Tolsimir, por 5 un 3-2, lifelink. Cuando entre en juego, pon un 5-5 con trample. Cuando un lobo que tú controles ataques y Tolsimir está en combate, esa criatura solo puede ser bloqueada. No, una criatura objetivo solo puede bloquear a este. Vale, a lobos. Por 3 un 4-4, por 2 gana de estas, por 1 vigilancia y por 3 double strike.
Trostani was once 3 dryads, Sin representing harmony, Oba representing life, and Ses representing order.
Puede que se juegue,
Now all are united with each other and the world.
Es que Target criatura, no
They
ella.
pointed the
Sí, sí.
investigators
Se va a jugar
towards the
seguro.
guild pact they sought.
Se va a jugar seguro.
The investigators learned that the cult of
Pasa las
Rakdos
cartas
was
rápido
founded
porque,
and bound to
porque quieren que
Rakdos
estés atento
in
a
the
la
hope that it
historia.
would
No a
prevent
las
him
cartas.
from
Las
his
cartas las
practice
vas a ver
of
ahora en
instilling
Twitter.
murderous rage into random citizens. That sure sounds like what happened to Etrata.
A ver qué dice Ratdos.
Etrata and Alquist headed to see Kylox the Inventor, hoping he might be able
Por
to shed
7
some
un
light on the
4-4 me
mysterious
hace guardar
powder.
2 haste
Alquist had some
cuando
suspicions
Crixos
about what that
ataque.
substance had to do
Sacrifica
with
cualquier
murders,
cantidad de
and knew that
criaturas.
only an
Exilia
advanced
X donde
scientific
X es
mind
su
could help him
fuerza.
get to
Tú
the
puedes
bottom of it.
lanzar
But when he
instantáneos
and
y
Etrata
conjuros
arrived at Kylox's
sin
lab,
pagar
they
su coste
found
de
it in
maná.
a state of turmoil.
Coñazo de
Alquist
carta.
combed through the ransacked lab for clues and discovered a secret disguised hatch that led underneath the lab. Kylox must have tried to escape.
To solve, you
Alquist and
have
Etrata followed the path only to find the missing
this turn.
Kylox working furiously in a secret office. Before they had a chance to discuss the powder, a group of goblins broke in to capture the artificer. Alquist and Etrata were able to quickly hide from being taken themselves, but managed to follow the group to somewhere on Tin Street. They discovered that Krenko, another suspect, who
Krenko,
thought
por
that
3 un
he was the
3-3
one in
hastes.
danger,
Agrega un
was
artefacto por un
behind
contador en
Kylox's
cada goblin que tú
kidnapping.
controles. Cuando un
Krenko believed that
artefacto
Kylox's secret
sea puesto en
research
el
was the key
cementerio
to the
desde el
recent
juego, puedes
spate of
pagar rojo. Si lo
murders.
haces, crea un
As
goblin
if
rojo
on
1-1 con
cue, yet
haste.
another brainwashed Ravnican made an attempt on Krenko's life. But his aim
No
fell
creo,
short.
te cuesta un
And
rojo.
instead of Krenko, Kylox was killed.
Cuando van al cementerio, no especialmente.
We managed to rouse the murderer from his stupor.
Coerce tu
He
kill.
was confused and horrified. He claimed to have been at the flower shop. And then suddenly here he was assassinating a scientist he had never even heard of. How curious.
At this point in the investigation,
Underground
it was clear that victims
Mortuary.
were piling up at an alarming rate.
Underground
What had
Mortuary
started as
suena
search for
a
Zagana's
tierra
killer
doble.
had now spiraled into something much more wide-ranging and insidious. Teysa and Kylox had both been murdered in
Ten
cold
District
blood,
Hero.
and there
Esa
were more
R print,
bodies
¿no?
to come. As Proft and Etrata were contemplating the scope of this case, across town, the agency informed Kaya and Kellen that Teysa's killer had been captured, a low-level hitman with no memory of the attack. And the bad news kept coming. Since she last crossed paths with Proft, Massacre Girl had attempted to murder Aurelia, killing 10 of the
Slice of
soldiers
the
in the
Shadows.
process. Massacre Girl,
Massacre
echoing
Girl,
the
qué
other
cartón,
killers
me ha
so far,
parecido
said
buena,
she
la
didn't
Massacre
know
Girl.
why she attacked Aurelia.
Me ha parecido bastante buena.
Aurelia would not accept this answer.
Pedir-
She gave
pedir-
Kaya and
de
Kellen
Malances,
24
esta ya la
hours
hemos
to
visto
solve the
antes.
case, or she'd march the Legion to war
War
against
Leader
the
Call,
cult
por
of
3,
Rakdos,
encantamiento. Las criaturas que tú
almost
controles más 1/1.
certainly
Cuando una
plunging
criatura que
Ravnica
entre en
back
juego
into
bajo tu
chaos.
control, el War Leader
They
tendrá
were
a cada
so
oponente.
close to finding the
¡Dios!
truth, but now the pressure was on.
¡Dios!
Elsewhere, Proft and Etrata were in Golgari territory in the Undercity, hunting down Izoni. Proft had noticed her spiders in Etrata's cell, and again in Kylox's underground lab. Clearly, Izoni was keeping tabs on the case.
Entra en juego de ataque, evidencia 4 si lo
Once found,
haces.
Izoni
Tal.
denied any wrongdoing, but was
Sacrifica
able to
4
confirm for
tokens,
them
no me da
what
tiempo a leer.
Kylox could not. Whatever the powder they found is, it is not from Ravnica.
I know who the killer is.
Un asesino entre
Obvious,
nosotros.
really, when you think
Encantamiento.
about it. I'll reveal all
Crea
in
un
front of a
humano, un
group of interested
merfolk,
parties,
un
including
goblin.
the culprit.
Y elige
You'll just have
secretamente
to
uno de
join me
ellos.
at
Sacrifica.
V2Gazi to learn the truth.
So, given what we know, who has Proft identified as the killer? Who had the motive and the means? Teysa hosted the party during which
Teysa,
the
esta ya
first
la hemos
murder
visto.
occurred.
Pones un 1-1
She
cada vez que
could have
chapas un
let in the
club
killer, but
y
she ended up a
investigas.
victim herself.
Cuando
And she appears
si un
to have
oponente
had
perdió
something
vida
to
este
hide
turno.
about the Phyrexian invasion. While she might have been involved somehow, we can rule her out as the main culprit. Etrata was clearly the one who murdered Zagana, but at the same time, she had no memory
Esta es la de
of
los
the event
asesinos que
itself.
hemos visto antes.
And she
Cloak.
assisted Proft in
Cloak no
gathering
sabemos
further
lo que es
clues.
todavía, ¿no?
Is she the murderer, playing a long and complicated game, or just the murder weapon? Judith had her own quarrel with Teysa, though she claims it was minor. But she also knew about the guild pact with Rakdos. Is it possible
Rakdos,
she's
vale,
involved in
Rakdos
the
es el que hemos
murders,
visto
or
antes.
does she have her own cunning plan?
Vale, vale.
Massacre Girl
El
is,
6-6
as the
malísimo.
name implies,
Luego
a
tenemos
known
4-4
killer.
amenaza
She not
este
only
sí, este es
attempted to
buenísimo.
knock
La vamos a
off
agregarle
Alquist
buena,
Proft,
buena.
but also attacked Aurelia. Is she, like Etrata, an unwitting pawn for someone else? Or is something more sinister going on beneath that not-so-innocent smile? Kylox felt threatened for the secret
Este sí que es
projects
una
he was
mierda,
working
como un
on,
puto
but didn't
castillo.
reveal
Supongo
what
que en
those
Commander,
were
Dios
while he
mío,
was
pajas,
alive.
pero...
Is it possible it had something to do with the powder that Proft found? Either way,
secta.
his death rules him out as a suspect. Krenko was convinced he was next on the murderer's hit list, and he was attacked by one of the brainwashed assailants. But they ended up killing the very scientist Krenko had just had kidnapped. Is it possible that he was behind the murders and used the attack on himself to dispose of an enemy and waylay suspicion? Massacre Girl's attack on Aurelia gave her the perfect pretext to launch an all-out war. But what if she was the one helping the murders along in order to establish a call for war that no one could question? Still, it seems
Aurelia Vindicator
unlikely
este,
that such
ojo,
a righteous figure would be so underhanded as to stoop to murder. Agris was a beacon of justice in his life, but called back into the service by the Boros Legion, he disappeared without telling anyone his intentions. Could he be hiding something?
Me flipa lo de que lo sospeche y haga amenaza
In the investigation. A
y no puede
ghost
bloquear.
just looking to retire. He was clearly not involved. We can rule him out. Could Trostani be involved? They seem innocent, but their guild has been through much
La tierra
turmoil
de
as a
Facero
result
Common.
of the Phyrexian
No me
invasion. Could it have unbalanced the Dryads in some way, turning a healthy tree into something twisted and gnarled beyond recognition? And even if they didn't act directly, they are connected to another of our suspects. Several of the mesmerized Ravnican assailants had vestiges of fur on their robes, a possible sign that they were working for Tolsimir and his mount, the Great Wolf Voya? Izoni had eyes on each phase of the investigation. Etrata's cell, Kylox's lab. Was she just keeping tabs like she said, or trying to remain one step ahead of an investigation she knew would lead to her? Or perhaps we should look more closely at the great detective at the center of this web. He has been at almost every crime scene, and this murder spree has burnished his reputation. Is he working both sides of this case?
This case was a tricky
A ver,
one.
alguna
It's
tierra tendrán que
easy
meter
to
aquí, ¿no?
solve at first.
No sabemos
Of
cuál
course,
meterán, puede que no sean las
Etrata
Shocklands,
killed
puede ser
Zagana.
que
We
no.
practically caught her red-handed.
O sea,
I
sería
witnessed Kylox's
regalar ya las
death, but the
Shocklands a
attacker
2 euros.
surrendered without a fight.
Pero...
Someone had to be pulling the strings
Hombre, esperemos que
all
tierras
along.
haya, ¿no?
So I called everyone here because I knew that the perpetrator was among you, and that they wouldn't be able to resist taking me out before I exposed them. As I had hoped, while speaking with Kaya moments ago, a flower grew from the wall and attempted to dose her with what appears to be mind control pollen, triggering my demise. Thanks to Izoni's help, we knew that this powder was not something we've ever seen here. This was the final piece of evidence I needed. The killer is none other than Oba, the central member of Trostani. Only Trostani has the power to create a new form of life like this. Any plant in the city was able to be used as a delivery system for the pollen. So, that's the method and the means. As for motive, each of the people Trostani killed or tried to kill was involved with the Phyrexian invasion. Teysa was communicating with them, though I'm told she was actually acting as a double agent for the benefit of Ravnica. Krenko profited off the war, and Zagana was experimenting with
El
Phyrexian
Murder,
oil. No one was more damaged by the Phyrexian invasion than Trostani, emissaries of all living things on this plane. And so, no one had a motive for murder like them.
Sí, pero han salido varios dibujos.
Oba, the central member of Trostani, was behind the plot, and Alquist Proft, with
Han
our
salido
help,
varios
managed to
dibujos
put
que,
the
pero no
pieces
significa
together.
que
But the
sea
larger
reprint.
mystery has just begun. There are so many more puzzles to solve and secrets to
Conectando
uncover
los
with
puntos,
murders at Karlov Manor. Your eye to detail and detective skills are still needed. In addition to playing the new set, there are 12 puzzles and 1 meta puzzle to solve. You can find your first puzzle in the pre-release kit and then discover more in products like Play Boosters and the bundle. Go to ravnicadetectiveagency.com for more puzzles and the
Los
final
nuevos
meta
sobres,
puzzle.
Play Boosters, ahí están.
And if you feel like attending a party less deadly than the one at Karlov Manor, you can play early at your local game store for pre-release starting the weekend of February 2nd, on Arena February 6th, and available everywhere February 9th. If you want even more tantalizing clues and details about the murders at Karlov Manor, story episodes are currently rolling out. Keep a sharp eye out for any further clues, detectives. Ravnica is still counting on you to solve the remaining puzzles.
No. Ponemos a los sobres nuevos.
Hello and welcome to the absolute best place to be if you want to learn more about murders at Karlov Manor. You just saw an introduction to the set. We learned a little bit about the mechanics. Saw some cool cards, some reprints, some new cards, some pretty cool treatments. And we are going to spend the next hour-ish diving deep into the set. We're going to
Dios mío,
go
Mario.
into each of those mechanics.
Ay, Dios mío.
Cards. We're going to talk about the booster fun treatments. We're going to talk more about that puzzle that's built into the set,
very excited.
which is really cool. We're going to
Ay,
reveal
Dios mío,
every
Mario.
special guest in the set, and we are also going to talk about Ravnica Cluedo edition later in the show. But first, let's meet, and I say meet loosely because you know these guys. Mike Turian and Mark Rosewater are here to talk about the set.
Mike
what were your
Turian,
roles, real quick, with the set?
So for Murders at Karlov Manor, I was the product designer, which I've been for a number of sets, The Lord of the Rings, Wilds of Eldraine. So yeah, I was super excited to help bring MKM to life.
MKM a la vida, Ha traído MKM a la vida.
Amazing products and, you know, getting to work with amazing designers, the puzzle designers, Mark Gottlieb as well. So,
Who we'll hear from later.
yeah,
¿Cómo has
we'll
visto
hear
los
from him later
spoilers,
too.
Topper,
And
con los
it's
ojos? Un
been-
saludo.
It's been a blast bringing another amazing Magic set to life.
Yeah.
So I co-led the division design for the set. Mark Gottlieb and I co-led it together. And then he co-led the set design with Andrew Brown.
Yep.
And so anyway, I was involved from the set from the very beginning.
Un saludo,
I'm excited to
Rauliox.
talk about the mechanics because this set has a lot of cool mechanics in it. So.
It does. It has some great mechanics. So we are going to dive deep into the mechanics, and you're going to see new cards. So if you're here for preview cards, we got you. We're going to have plenty of them. So we're going to kick off with kind of the biggest marquee mechanic of the set, which is Disguise and Cloaks. We've got some preview cards, but Mark, why don't you talk real quick about what Disguise and Cloak are?
Okay, so when we first said we're doing a murder mystery, we said, well, what's in, from a mechanical standpoint, what do we need to do?
Tenemos
Well,
un
we need to have
misterio, no
this,
sé
we
qué.
need to figure something out. That's the key to a murder mystery. So we went and said, well, are there mechanics that already exist where you have to solve something? And we talked a lot about there's hidden information, but like being in your hand didn't quite get the feel we want because like you have to know you don't know something.
Yeah.
And so Morph was kind of a low-hanging fruit, if you will, that, it's a very popular mechanic introduced during Onslaught, was in Time Spiral, was in Concept Arcade.
Es que está fumadísimo, ¿eh? Nada, había que meter el Morph. Había que meter el Morph, para claro, tú juegas la carta boca abajo porque es un Morph y entonces, es un misterio. Hasta arriba, hasta arriba,
Not quite as strong, and the creature's a little stronger. So 3 mana for a 2/2, because Morph, you can play a face-down 2/2 creature, vanilla creature for 3. It's a little on the weak side. So what we said is, okay, during Concept Arc here, we did some exploration. We tried what we called Borf, which was Bear Morph, which was a 2/2 for 2, too aggressive. We tried something we called Smorf, which was for 4 mana, you played a 2/2 with a +1/+1 counter. So it's like for 3/3. That sort of morphed into Megamorph. We didn't quite end up with what we wanted, but when we started this time, like, okay, let's do more exploration. So the first thing we tried was 3 mana for a 3/2. The problem there was it was a little too aggressive, and you never tended to flip them up. You never turned them up because they were just too good at killing things. And so we said, okay, what we really wanted was a mechanic that kept you from killing them, so you could flip them up. That one of the fun parts about Morph is it gets
Correcto, o sea que estuvieron probando varias cosas, que si un contador, que si 3/2, que si no sé qué, pero que al final lo han dejado como 2/2 con guardos para que lo quieras flipear porque la carta sea buena y que tenga mínimo un poco de protección para que no te lo maten y lo puedas flipear.
Now, for those longtime players, we kept the rule. There's a rule we have we call the Morph rule, where it's not just 5 mana that you can flip things up, so you know that you won't.
Y han quitado la norma del flip.
To a Morph creature till they have 5 mana. That it can't. If it's less than 5 mana, it'll trade. So you're aware of that. We kept that rule. And then basically what we did is we called it Disguise. And then what Cloak is we did Manifest back in Concept Arcade did Morph. We did Manifest. Manifest just means you take a card from the top of your library, put it on the battlefield as a face-down 2/2, and then you can turn it up if it's a creature. Cloak basically is like Manifest, although it can come from other zones. It doesn't have to come from the library. But you put it face down, but as a 2/2 with War 2, so that it matches with Disguise. So Disguise is just upgraded Morph, and Cloak is sort of upgraded Manifest. But it just was the perfect fit for a murder mystery set. Like,
Cloak es Manifest, es Manifest.
And so it just, I mean, we talked about it very early on. It wasn't the very first thing we added. I'll get to that in a second. But it was the second thing we added.
Dios mío.
And it just seemed like a clean, perfect fit. And I will say, I do think it's a slightly better Morph. And the reason we changed it, the reason it's not just Morph, is this guy just plays a little bit better.
So let's see some examples of Morph. I'm doing it right away.
Vale, Disguise es por 4 1 2 4 vuela, cuando entra en juego pierdes 3 vidas, o lo puedes jugar como Disguise. Vale.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's always been true about Morph is that one of the fun things is I play a creature and
Es
has some value
poner
at 3
al
mana,
culprit
no matter what
por
it costs,
2
at 3 mana,
instantáneo,
I get a 2/2, and 2/2 is
exilia
4/2. So I have
cualquier
a creature
cantidad
that
de
I use, but later
criaturas
in the
boca
game,
arriba y
often,
haz
I can turn into something bigger.
y ponla
Now, maybe
boca
the
abajo.
creature
Baraja esa
actually is
pila y
bigger,
luego
maybe the creature
Cloak
has
them.
an effect
Para
that
hacer
you can
Cloak,
face off.
pon
You know, there's a lot of different
en
things you can do
juego,
with it. This
boca
sort of
abajo,
showing all the
un
different kinds of
2/2
stuff, but
con
that's
guardos.
one of the things that's great about this kind of mechanic is it is super
Puedes ponerla boca
interactive.
arriba en cualquier
There's a lot of
momento
design space.
por
There's a
el
lot of
coste de la
really cool cards
criatura.
we can make. And you get a lot of really fun reveal moments, which exactly plays into the tropes
Vale.
we want. Where, haha, it's this. you know.
And that morph rule that you were referring to earlier, for anyone who doesn't recognize that.
Hombre,
so you'll notice that
el gadget technical este es brutal, Este es brutísimo, este bicho,
So you can turn them up for 2 mana. Both have
De las comunes más fuertes del set, seguro, vamos.
Is if I attack into a 2/2 and they morph it and they don't have 5 mana, I know I won't lose they won't save their creature and I lose my creature. They might bounce, we might trade, but at least I know that if they don't have 5 mana, I'm not just having it swallowed up by their creature. So, and that's an important rule. We kept it, even though Morph became Disguise, the rule still kept. The 5 rule still stayed.
And then one of the things I love here about Atrata, right, is like you were talking about Morph, you were talking about Manifest, and she works with she works with all of them.
Right, it's just face
Be-
down, so it
Yeah.
works,
Right,
yeah.
it's face down. Of course, you know, she's a combo with
Yeah,
herself.
yeah.
Right, but then like as you go back and you go and find some of your decks that have those mechanics in them, like she's a perfect
Yes.
perfect addition, as well as of course being an assassin to boost up assassins as well. It's
Well, I mean,
quite fun.
We're doing murder mystery, you gotta have some assassins.
Yeah, right. You're gonna want to.
Para limitado yo creo que está bien.
For sure.
At some point we'll talk Ravnica, right? Is that later? We're talking Ravnica?
We'll get to
Okay,
Ravnica
we'll get to
later.
Ravnica,
Yeah.
okay.
There was a comment in chat that I think leads perfectly into our next slide, which is the confusion about if you have morph and disguise in the same deck, which will exist, which we'll talk about later. But we have this helper token right here, a mysterious creature. So this is whenever you have a disguised creature, you can use this as an overlay. And the morph overlays exist from Cons of Tarkir
Yes,
as
yeah,
well. And so those do exist to help keep these things straight. And then, you know, I also saw a comment about questions about the limited archetypes. And there are limited archetypes that care about face-down creatures, which is what our next card is. So talk a little bit about this.
Por 2 en
White Green
1-3,
cares about this guy's
un
influence.
elfo arquero alcance cuando un permanente boca abajo que tú controles se ha puesto boca arriba, pone un contador sobre él y sobre el Sumala Sentry.
Draft archetype. And so we decided that white and green could play into caring about face down things. And so I think this is what we call the gold showcase signpost uncommon.
Yep.
Yeah, and so it sort of.
Hombre,
the
el límite
uncommon
se va a
says,
jugar.
"Hey, if you're playing
Fuera
this
el
color, here's what
límite
you wanna do." And
ya
so,
tiene que ser muy buena la carta para que se juegue.
white is the most aggressive color, and so it really likes face down because it can be very aggressive with its things. Green is the color that has the biggest creatures, and so morph is nice in that you can play big things early. And so anyway, just white green made a lot of sense for being the place to stick that mechanically.
Yeah, and I believe I know Adam Styborski and myself wrote a collecting article that has a product overview, and I believe in there, I'm 99% sure, it shows all 10 draft archetypes. Right? And so you can sort of go and check that out on Daily MTG, and you'll see like, okay, this is what white green's about, this is what red black's about, etc. And they all have such fun names because it's murder mystery set. And I really enjoy the names they give the archetypes.
Also, let me ask a question real quickly,
Yeah.
which I'm sure will come up. So obviously, when you mix morph with disguise, I mean, you have to now track them.
Yep.
One of the things people ask me is like, well, morph works. Why would you change morph? And the answer is, we don't like the future to be victim to the past, right? Like, we made something, and when we made Onslaught, morph made sense, but Magic has changed, and so just because we have to adapt with the times, and we have to change with the times, and so, like, disguise is just us saying, hey, morph made sense, but now it doesn't right now, and that, look, yeah, maybe if you mix and match them, but we don't want to not adapt things and make things better just because literally 20 years ago we did something.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, one of the other big flavor home runs, obvious inclusions for a mechanic that it was so obvious we introduced it back at the first look, is Investigate, which
Yeah,
is a
so
returning
I
mechanic.
said before that morph was the second thing we did.
Yeah.
Literally, the very first day, we write down all the tropes, and one of the questions we ask is, are there mechanics we want to bring back? And Investigate is such the slam dunk.
Hombre, es que Investigate entra fijo, ¿no?
Magic has done mystery once before. So in Shadows over Innistrad, we were doing cosmic horror.
Yeah.
And a big part of cosmic horror is it starts with a mystery. And so we put Jace in a trench coat, and so that's where we introduced Investigate. Anyway, it was obvious from day one. How do you do murder mystery worlds and not have investigating clues? So it was literally the absolute first thing we put in the set. Everybody assumed it'd be in the set. That's why you showed it in the first look. Like, why wouldn't it be? So, but the one thing we can show some cards. We did some fun stuff with it because we're ever evolving. But anyway, it makes perfect sense. The reason we made Investigate in the first place, real quickly, is we wanted to draw cards, but it turned out that drawing cards is really good. And so Investigate came about because we said, how do you draw half a card? That's where it came from. And the idea of, I'll make a token, and the token with mana draws me a card is a way to make cards, but it's not quite a full card.
Yeah.
And anyway, the clues were so popular, it led us down this path where we did treasure and food and blood and all sorts of other things. And so the idea of artifact tokens in volume as a mechanical component clues really were the thing that led us down that path. So anyway, clues are back. So.
Clues are back. Let's see some cards. So the first cards we're going to show, we showed these at first look, so these are
Estas
not
dos son
new
buenísimas.
cards.
Estas dos
But
son
we wanted to show
brutales.
some
Las
cards
dos.
that, you know, they investigated,
Pero las dos,
when
las
they
dos
cast
son
them, when they entered the
buenísimas.
battlefield.
Buenísimas las dos.
Alquist Proft, obviously one of the stars of this set, can do some stuff. Do some stuff. By do some stuff, I mean cast Sphinx's Revelation when sacrificing a player. But I did want to, you hinted at it, Mark, focus on, you all took an extra step and put some things in the set that you can do with clues, which is our next slide. So, Galvanize.
Galvanize, por 2 instantáneo, hace 3 daños a una criatura. Si tú robaste 2 o más cartas este turno, hace 5 daños a esa criatura instead. Mola. Mola porque, claro, con las clues robas cartas de más, tal, no sé qué, vale.
The nature of sort of design technology is we do something and we build on it. When we did investigate, this is the idea of making multiple tokens with
Throw for fare. Entra girado. Cuando entra en juego, sacrifícalo a menos de que gires un artefacto o una tierra. Básicamente la típica tierra esta que da de cualquier color, pero tienes que pagar un incoloro, que ahora te lo dejan pagar con cacharros. Bueno, mola. O sea, esta carta hablo de límites. Esto de aquí, carta de límites, el Galvanize, puede que se juegue en Constructed, pero yo diría que también carta de límites.
And to the point of different tokens, like these are obviously meant within the set to work with clues, but fans are pointing out that, you know, treasures work pretty well with crime novelists as well, and that sort of deal.
I just want to read the book that the crime novelist is reading. It seems like a Goblin Bard.
Goblin Bard is a great type line. It's, you know, and are they writing about the
La verdad que el Goblin Bard este, cuando sacrificas un artefacto, pone un contador +1/+1 y añade rojo. Es igual con Baconalo.
I suspect that we. Oh no, I'm not. That's the one pun. I didn't even finish it, but we're going to move on to talk about suspect, which is one of the new mechanics in this set. And we've already shown Argus Cos was in the debut, so we can put that slide up. And then Mark, talk a little bit about what suspect is and
Por 1 encantar criatura, entra en juego, sospecha de una criatura, tiene amenaza y no puede bloquear, +1/+1 y por 3 a la mano. Mola.
One of the things that we're always on the look for is how to improve the resonance of design, how to make things even more evocative. And so something we've really started doing, this set is where we did it in force, is this idea of, obviously, if we have cool names, we can take expressions and words and put them in names, put them in flavor text. But the thing we ask ourselves is,
Me gusta el
how do we
suspect.
write rules text that's the most evocative rules text we could write? How do we get the words of the genre?
Las míticas que han salido son buenas para límites, lo siento, esto no es algo de lo que hablemos en este streaming, lo siento.
Murder mystery story is really important, right? There's a victim, someone usually dies. There's a culprit, but we don't know who that is. And then most everybody is a suspect. And so we wanted to bring a way to make you the suspect. And we actually, my article that goes up, I think later today, I give a lot of examples, or sorry, next week's article does this, gives a lot of examples of the different ways we try to suspect.
El Agus Cross este no me parece malo.
We wanted it to be something that had both a positive to it and a negative to it, so that sometimes you'd want to put on your creatures, sometimes you make your creature suspects, but sometimes you want to make your opponent's creature suspects. The early version of it was negative, so you just want to put on your opponent's creatures, but we found that it played better if you could do it on both.
O sea, es que el Argus Cross este hace bichos tuyos imbloqueables o imbloqueables un turno al del otro y luego lo mata. Quizás sea muy lento, pero ya hay una mono roja bastante potente, Shellac.
So the idea, one of the big things about design is you want the game to end, and so you want to make mechanics that sort of push inertia to make the game end. And the reason I like Suspect a lot is
tiene doble strike y vigilancia, o sea,
if you put it on your
sí, para estándar, no creo que llegue a...
Because your creatures can't block anyway, and they got menace. It encourages you to attack because they can't block.
Por desgracia.
So, it just was a mechanic that sort of had a lot of flavor to it, and just helped make the game end, which is always good in design.
Yeah, And Mike, I know you're about to say something, but I am getting a bunch of questions in chat about how can we tell that a character is suspected? So what did you all put together to make sure we?
Yeah, so I mean, much like there was the mysterious creature helper card, we have a suspected counter, and you can get these in the play boosters. I think it's about 10% or so of play boosters come with a punch-out helper. We'll take a look at a couple more here upcoming. But you'll have this suspected counter, and you put it on top of the creature. I mean, I know we're seeing it large here, but when you see it on the creature, and I think on the video too, it shows
como
that it's a
sospechoso,
pretty
necesitas
nice-
dos ahí,
a pretty nice size to indicate, and also with a fun little graphic
Yep.
to go along with it, enjoyable itself. If we go back to the previous slide, one of the things I love about the set is not only did that rules text start out really, striving for, okay, how are we going to do suspect? How are we, like the whole set, it just brings it together with.
O sea, de hecho es que lo puedes hacer a sí mismo, sospechoso.
Right? Like to me that shows how, starting with the rules text.
O sea, puede ser por 4, 1, 2, 4, double stripe vigilance,
just continues throughout
menas.
the art and the names as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you think of airtight alibi, you think of, well, they're no longer a suspect, and that's exactly what the card does.
Yeah, one of the things we tend to do in top-down sets is we'll have the creative team make evocative names very early on, and then we'll directly design cards exactly to match the names. And so just so people understand, the way it works is suspect is a keyword action. You suspect something, then it becomes a suspected creature, and then it gets that ability. And so, because it's a keyword action, we can use it in a lot of different ways. So it's very flexible.
And we saw in Argus Cost there are ways that there are going to be cards that interact with suspects in different ways and have them do different things. All right, let's move on to the next mechanic, which is it's really a cost, but it's pretty evocative as well, which is collect evidence. And even though all three of these cards are green, let's play
Como coste adicional, evidencia 8. O sea, exilia cartas de tu cementerio hasta que tengan 8 de coste. Busca en tu biblioteca una tierra básica. You may, vale. Busca una básica. Si la has hecho collected, busca una criatura o land. Revélala y ponla en tu mano. Bueno. Un traverse malo, ¿no? Traverse malo. Por 2, un 1-3. Collect 6, Rich. Cuando entra en el juego, si fue collected, pon un contador y gana 2 vidas. Bueno. Bite down on crime, por 4. Este hechizo cuesta 2 menos si hiciste evidencia 6. Es curioso, ¿eh? Te sacan esto de evidenciar, que es exiliar cartas del cementerio, cuando han tenido que programar para el arena el Delve. Curioso, cuanto menos.
What collect evidence does, it cares about the combined mana value of cards. I think the earliest version, it was always 6. But the more we played with it, we realized that we wanted to be able to change it up. We wanted it to be a knob. So now it's collect evidence number. And what that means is, as a cost, and it's often used as an enter the battlefield effect, but it's a cost. So there's other places you can use it. As a cost, you have to remove that many mana value worth of cards. And you're allowed to go over if you need to, but you have to be at least that amount. So collect evidence 6 means remove cards that are at least 6. It can be more if it has to be.
Yeah, and I think we don't have one on the screen right now. These are all very similar to just additional costs. But collect evidence is used in a few other ways. We saw one in the debut where a creature had ward collect evidence for. So that sort of different flavor to it.
There's a lot of different ways you can use. In fact, I have
Mira, la verdad que es que esto de evidencia.
I have a collect evidence 10 card coming, and what collect evidence 10? Well, it's pretty exciting. Obviously, the knob allows us to do sort of big things, and so we can make big swings. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways you collect evidence because it's a cost.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and then the last mechanic we're going to talk about was touched on briefly in the debut video, which are cases. Which they look like sagas, but they're a little bit different.
Vale, a ver cómo funciona esto.
This is something we've been actually trying to do for a while, since original Zendikar. Zendikar had quests in it we tried a different version of quests where you had a bunch of different things you had to do, and if you did those things,
Cuando
you
entra
got
en
a reward.
juego-
Didn't quite work out there. We tried it again on Return to Ravnica. Return to Zendikar. We tried it in Throne of Eldraine. We tried to do quests because there were knights.
Yep.
We tried something we called Crimes in Streets of New Capenna. So we played in the space a lot. We sort of streamlined it. So the way it works is there's 3 components. One is that there's something you have to solve, right? The idea is, we love the idea of Case of the Blankety Blank.
Yeah.
That's a trope of detective stories.
Yep.
And
Vale.
we wanted to call cards that. So we knew it wanted to be an enchantment because it's a non-tangible thing. That's what enchantments do well. If it's tangible, it'd be an artifact, but this is a non-tangible thing. So there's something you have to solve. That's the thing in the middle. So like, okay, here's the goal.
Vale,
You're the detective.
okay.
Solve this. Here's the thing to do. And then at bottom, there's a reward. Once you've solved it, then you get a reward. It could be an effect that just goes off.
Vale, es
It could be
decir,
like an enchantment-like effect.
La
You just
parte
get
de en
some
medio se
reward.
resuelve sola, es decir, esto tú no tienes que hacer nada, lo único que tienes que hacer es conseguir resolverlo para obtener el beneficio. Y la carta en sí lo que hace es lo de arriba, ¿no? Es decir, por 2, cuando un detective entre en juego bajo tu control, o cuando un detective que tú controles sea puesto boca arriba, ponle un contador sobre él. Cuando tengas 3 detectives, pasas a la parte de abajo. Al final del turno... Ah, vale, esto en cualquier momento. Se resuelve, y entonces luego ya hace la parte de abajo todo el rato. Si uno o más tokens fue creado bajo tu control,
And Mike,
crea esa cantidad de
help with
tokens
this
más
as
un
well, correct?
Yeah,
clue instead.
once again, we wanted to have something to indicate, hey, when it is solved, just so that way, because you're getting...
Hace las
an
dos, o me
additional
supongo que
bonus, you
todas,
still
¿no?
get, the initial ability, but then when you solve it, you get the additional bonus as well.
The additional
And
bonus.
that way it's pretty
Additional
clear
bonus,
that,
es decir, las
you know, what
dos.
state the cards in. And so once again, this is another punch-out counter that comes in packs.
And real quickly, one of the challenges is we make different cards. How to lay them out is interesting. We obviously, this sort of followed in, I think, how we did classes, where it's a saga reversed, meaning it laid out like a saga, but instead of being on the art being on the right side and being on the left, we've reversed it a little bit. So what we found when we have sequential cards, where you're sort of doing something along the way, the verticalness does a great job of showing sequentiality, and so that's why it looks like this.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and then just for the people,
Sí.
there are rare cases. I know we're looking at an uncommon.
Yep.
But there are rare cases.
Hay
there
casos
would have to be
raros,
an
eh.
Extended art variant because
Much like we've done with sagas.
much
yeah,
like
yeah.
we've done with sagas, just because it does with the layout we have, it just doesn't work with that aspect ratio.
That was also a completely
Importante saber dónde están los dibujos, tío.
of the show, which is talking about booster fun, and we are actually going to start with extended. We of course have extended art cards in this set. The eagle-eyed in chat may have noticed at the end of the video that there was some art. It said Assassin's Trophy. That's our next card.
¡Ojo!
Yeah. So extended art, Mike.
Yeah, so extended art, you can find it in the collector booster. We typically only include it in the collector booster, and what we use it for is, we're going to be taking a look at all of the fun variants today. For the rares and the mythic rares that don't have a variant, we always want to make sure that there's something to sort of zhuzh up your deck, as it were.
Yep.
And so we do this extended art version. We also do it for the commander content. There's extended art rares and mythics of those as well. Because ever since we introduced the borderless
Sí.
Throne of Eldraine, it's just been. It always looks so outstanding.
Yeah.
And so it's just fun to see a little bit more of the art. And it really stands out, especially for an awesome card like Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah, and speaking of which, Mark, so we've seen Lightning Helix, we've seen Assassin's Trophy. Those are exciting reprints in a standard set. Has the philosophy changed, or how are you all thinking about reprints in standard sets?
Well, a couple things happened. One is standard went from 2 years
Boy.
to 3 years, which just raised the bar a little bit for the power level of standard.
Yep.
And Magic in the last 5 years or so, 5-10 years, has really change sort of, there's lots more people playing lots of different formats, playing older formats. And so I definitely think we've sort of rethought a little bit of, we're a little bit more aggressive, I think, with reprints than we used to be.
Carta de 15 euros, valdrá 5.
Standard going to 3 years helps a little bit with that. But, and, I mean, we'll get into this in a little bit about why Ravnica, but we're back on Ravnica, and like one of the fun things about doing a return is, you know, it evokes very specific cards. Like there's definitely things that when people think of Ravnica, there's very specific things they think of, and that's kind of fun that we can go back and do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is a great place for us to talk about why Ravnica, because you were saying before the show that this set wasn't initially designed as a Ravnica set.
So when we started, we were going to do Murder Mystery World. That was the plan. We were going to do Murder Mystery World.
A brand new world.
Brand new world. Like, and they were, we'll optimize the world. Like a lot of times when we do top down, we're like, we're going to make a world that's this world. You know, we can make every decision to make this. You know, like it's a world where murders are happening constantly and people are solving it, whatever. And what we realized was, first thing we realized is it kind of had to have a city that just murder mysteries require a certain amount of structure to them, and it needed to have like law, like the law, like there needed to be police, and like you had to have something in which it meant something. Like when you're found guilty of a crime, then something happens to you, right? And that, like, there's other places where the murder mystery wouldn't make as much sense, and so we started building it. It needed
Hay una carta que hay que comprar claramente, pero claramente.
The more we built it, the more we're like, wow, this really seems like Ravnica.
Mañana a las 9.
And then one day
Mañana a las 9 se dice la carta.
Maybe it just wants to be Ravnica, because one of the problems with building a new world for a murder mystery is nothing
De
meant it.
estándar.
Like somebody got murdered. Who's this person? We've never met them before.
Es rara.
Murdered, you know, and that,
Perdón, es mítica. Acabo de comprarme 4. Es mítica, acabo de pagar 5,97 por ella.
Somebody that, you know, like,
And the murderer could be somebody.
and the murderer could be someone you know, right? So one of the things that was really like when we first the story started and Zagana was spoiler. I guess,
Es mítica de estándar.
People wrote to me, they go, I can't, not Zagana. Like it meant something to them, and so the reason we ended up, like I talked about when we made Ixalan, the idea of a backdrop set, right? That we can take
Claro, es el lore de investigación, eso es.
Sort of front, but have that be the setting. And ironically,
Tiene que ver, mírale, su morenito, la ha clavado, La ha clavado, su morenito, la ha clavado.
Why we invented a whole new world when we already made a world? And to answer a question that people ask me, why not Capenna? Why not New Capenna, right? New Capenna, it has a 20s vibe, film noir, like that. There's a lot of mystery tied to film noir. The problem was New Capenna, like, I mean, I guess there is a legal system in some sense, but a world in which people are just constantly killed because, you know, there's mobsters, like, it didn't quite have the vibe we needed. Like, we needed the law to be a little more firm. And so Ravnica just made more sense than New Capenna. We didn't talk about New Capenna. Once we said it needed to be something, we didn't sort of say, like, okay, what should it be? But it really, really wanted to be Ravnica. Like, the world we were building that was a brand new world, like, we were trying to stay off of Ravnica. That was the problem we started running into, is like, we're like, okay, well, let's not do the optimized world so we don't step on the toes of Ravnica. And like, what are we doing? Like, oh, just make it Ravnica, so we made it Ravnica.
Well, and then I also really like that, you know, talking about Ravnica, like we just had Ravnica Remastered, right, released recently. And so for the fans, they were like, oh, I want the guild mechanics and that gameplay, right? It's just like, great, we'll have that set out, so that way you can be like, nearly all of the mechanics that you love from all of the Ravnica sets. But then here we could really dive into the murder mystery trope and introduce new mechanics that, you know, worked better for a murder mystery world. So that way you could sort of get the best of both by playing both sets.
And a little side note, this is a behind the scenes thing. One of the things we were worried about when we made it Ravnica was like, oh, but we're not giving you Ravnica mechanically as you know it. And the Ravnica Remastered just happened to be right there on the schedule. Like, we didn't plan it. That wasn't on. It just was there, and we're like, oh, it's somebody telling us that we should just do this because, you know, right before the set comes out, we give you the guild experience of Ravnica. So,
yeah,
worked out.
Absolutely. All right. Let's now zoom in. I said that we're going to be no more of those, but we're going to zoom in on more booster fun.
La tortuga te permite exiliar cosas del cementerio. Te permite exiliar cosas del cementerio. Se juega con barajas de Assassin's Trophy. La mejor Mallan es la negra verde. O sea, es que la tortuga.
Yeah, so one of the things we wanted to do was, once again, you know, with Booster Fun, we always go, we say, hey, what is this set about? You know, how can we really tap into the resonance, Mark's talked about it from the gameplay standpoint, but then also from the aesthetic standpoint as well.
Yeah.
And so you can see here, it's sort of, it really is taking a look through a magnifying glass. And a couple things that I really love that were done here. One, it's just, these are all story moments.
Yep.
Right? So all of the showcase magnified cards.
No es mi guardia,
Spells, instant sorceries. And they all reflect like a moment, a beat in the story, and you can see that mtgstory.com.
El Drain, 3,5.
Go and read about it. But so therefore, it gives you a sort of a second look, right? Of, here it is. Here's this moment from a little bit of a different angle with a different perspective. You can even see that there's 2 unique pieces of flavor text, right? Giving that extra perspective. So we really try to embrace all ways of, hey, as a murder mystery, as a detective, like what is taking a closer look, and we've gone with this showcase magnified cards treatment to do that.
Absolutely. All right, next up, and there is another sort of meta treatment that is on creatures. We're going to talk about that in a second. But we're going to look at the promos coming up. You've seen some of these, but not all
Vamos
of
a
them.
ver las promos.
So these are the 5 cards that you can get in.
Laninelix, No More Lies. Contrasta el hechizo objetivo del jugador para que 3 hechizos. Es contrastado de esta manera, exílialo. Por 2, un 3-2 Reach. Cuando entra en juego, destruye un oponente que controla un oponente. Hostia, esta es buena, El Kraul Whipe Crapper ese, ojo. Adiós. Un largo adiós. Destruye otro objetivo o Planeswalker de coste 3 o menos. ¡Ay, Dios mío! Este hechizo no puede ser contrarrestado. ¡Ay, Dios mío! Long Goodbye. El Long Goodbye, esto viene Oco, Está viniendo Oco, Anti-Oco. Saben que viene Oco, Anti-Oco.
At stores, typically for playing in events or prizes for those events.
Yep. Yeah, I love how
El Eliminate mejor. Pero, tío, si es mejor, es literalmente mejor que el Eliminate. No puede ser contrarrestado. ¿Qué dices?
No More Lies speaks to my heart. Now let's see some of
¿Qué hace el dragón que no se ve? Por 2 en 1-1 vuela, cuando entra en juego investigas. Y si sacrificas un artefacto, pone un contador +1/+1 sobre este dragón. Se dice mejorado, Ferre. Hay que saber utilizar los verbos. Uy, los verbos, los adjetivos. Un saludo.
Instant sorceries. Here we can see the dossier are creatures, and the reason for that is this is really, like, if you imagine sort of a detective pin board. We saw that in the video, sort of as you're piecing together the suspects and the victims. We really tried to embrace that sort of look and feel of, you're the detective standing at the
El Draco va a ser bueno en Limited, sí.
And here are some of the different creatures that, and characters that you think may have done it or may have been a victim. And you can see here with the flavor text there on the Whipcracker, it sort of notes. It's sort of in that style. So once again, just another take on the flavor text to sort of embrace the feel we were going here with the showcase dossier treatments.
Yeah, and we talked about it before. We don't have a slide for it here, but there's an invisible ink treatment as well, correct?
Yes.
Or not treatment, but foiling.
Yeah, the showcase dossier have an invisible ink version for I think it's 14 of the mythic rare creatures.
14 cartas míticas van a tener un tratamiento especial en foil, porque el foil se vende mucho mejor.
With the naked eye and sort of there's a video that we've shown as part of the first look. And you can sort of see it come to life, and they have like fun doodles, fun notes, and they're just a really outstanding, fun new treatment that we've done.
Yep, and we are going to show off one other cool treatment, which we haven't shown off yet, but if people want to know like where and how to find these things, your collecting article, which goes up on Daily MTG, is the place to be, right?
Yeah, my collecting article. If you're like, hey, I want to know how often in the collector booster I get the showcase magnified cards, right? I have it in there, down to not just like 8%, but it'll, not that that's the number, but it'll say like 8.2%, right? So very precise. We want to make sure that, as people are purchasing the different products, they know what they can get, where to get it. And then also, too, because the play
Luego,
booster
ahora
is
vuelvo.
new with Murders at Karlov Manor,
Yep.
right? Mark did an article a couple months ago highlighting them. And then the collecting article also has more details about the play booster,
Yep.
right? We've gotten some more questions about that. And then I know we'll talk about Clue upcoming,
Yep.
details about that. Tons of details in that article, and it shows off a lot of the fun content and products as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of fun content, it's not a set unless we have really cool borderless dual lands, and these ones are new, and they're awesome, and let's show them. So these are
Ojo, tierras nuevas.
lands with the basic land
Ojo,
type,
tierras nuevas.
and they do enter tap,
Pecheables que te hacen
but when they enter
surveil.
the battlefield, you get Surveil 1.
Yes. So I mean, one of the
Diez.
things that we
Diez.
wanted to do is we wanted to bring
Diez.
some new awesome dual lands. As we were talking about before, Ravnica Remastered
Yes.
had the shock land
Templos fecheables.
in it, and so we wanted to bring a new design to standard, and you can sort of see here, much like the Scry lands previously, Surveil is just another land in that type. And then you can see that they have the basic land types, so always so important. It means you can fetch them up. And then Surveil works great with like the mechanic like collect evidence, right? Because it's just like, oh, maybe you don't want that card.
Obviamente es para domain, sí, sí, es para domain claramente. Sí, 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 y Surveil, que ojo, Una de estas se va a llevar en... Yo creo que una de estas se va a llevar en...
Although in collector boosters, I believe they're only foil.
Una de estas yo creo que se va a llevar en Dredge. Una. En Murtide seguro. No creo que Murtide pueda permitirse llevar Taplands. ¿Qué hacía Surveil? Miras la del top, es como Scry, pero el Scry te lo ponen en el bottom de la biblioteca, ¿no? Y Surveil te lo pone en el cementerio.
A rare dual land in it, and you're going to get an extra rare as well. So that's a nice.
That is. I didn't even know that before the show. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
No creo que lleve ninguna Murtide.
Yeah. Okay. So that's our look at the treatments. We did mention earlier that the commander cards, some of them show up in extended as well. So we are going to show off the face cards for the 4 commander decks. And then the decks will be shown off next week by some of our favorite outlets in the community. So let's take a look at the 4 face cards for the decks. First up, we have the Deadly Disguise face card, Coust, Eyes of the Glade. It's not often we see hybrid mana in the casting cost of a commander.
Yeah, that's totally true. And one of the great things it does, of course, is it just means that
Dríada Detective, por 2 de un 2-2, cuando una criatura que tú controles sea puesta boca arriba este turno, haga daño a un jugador, roba una carta. ¿Puedes, por favor, ponerle más pegas a la carta?
The other thing is, because we're on Ravnica, 3-color, just from an aesthetic, is a little bit weird in Ravnica. I mean, we could do it, but it's nice to sort of not like be 3-color without exactly being 3-color. So
right, and you can definitely the Deadly Disguise, of course, as you can tell from reading cost, right? A lot about face down creatures, turning them face up to your advantage.
Esto es para los morphs nuevos, Unai, que no sé si has llegado tarde o tal. Han sacado unos morphs nuevos que se llaman Disgusting, o Disgusting, o Disrupting. ¿Cómo? No, Disgusting no. Han sacado un morph nuevo, que es todo igual que el morph, pero que en vez de ser un morph normal, tiene Guard 2 cuando está boca abajo.
This is a deck that cares about Surveil and also about bringing creatures back from the graveyard.
Para Disgusting yo, pues sí. No, Pepe, porque te lo van a sacar en los mazos de Commander. No hay que comprarte mis Raptor ni de coña. Por 3 en 1-3, vuela vigilancia. Cuando tú Surveil le pones un contador al comienzo de tu paso final, tú puedes regresar una criatura con fuerza menor del cementerio con un Finality Counter. Mola. De cuarta de H, pues sí.
Magic's just filled with cards from that have surveil, and so that's always a fun thing to build around.
I also want to point out, as you'll see different detectives, one of the things the set does do is there's lots of different kinds of detectives. Once we made a detective a class, like this is a vampire detective. You'll notice the set is full of just different kinds of detectives.
Yeah.
It's fun to see, and that each guild, I think, gets its own detective. Like that we flavor all of it, different detectives in different ways. It's fun. So
yeah, and we'll see as previous, and it's not relevant to the Commander decks, but we're talking about it. We'll see as previous season goes on. There are actually cards that care about creatures being detectives.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see our third card. So this is Morska Undersea.
Por 3, 1, 2, 3, tú no tienes tamaño máximo de mano, el que
Sleuth.
tu mantenimiento investiga. Cuando
So
tú
it's
robes
green,
la
white,
segunda
blue,
carta de
and
tu
this is
turno,
the
ponle
DC
2 contadores a esta carta.
Clue C, which is the pun, obviously, for the deck that cares about clues. So it has that whenever you draw your second card each turn, this gets bigger, you have no maximum hand size, and at the beginning of your upkeep, investigate. So you can do all kinds of things with those clues.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the deck name. It's by far my favorite deck name of the.
I'm generally against puns, but it's a really good one.
Right, it's really good, and of course, I mean, as you talked about earlier, clues and drawing your second card just pair perfectly, and then you get to investigate every turn, and so you're already basically just for a couple mana, your commander's turned on and powered up, and Vidalcan Fish Detective is of course a well-known trope, and so we really, I think the team
we really hammered that trope to it.
And for those asking about why this isn't a Merfolk, Gavin Verhey actually did talk about this when we first revealed the Commander decks a while back. I'm sure if you bother him on Twitter, he will respond again, but he does have a tweet a while ago where he talks about why this was a Vedalken Fish Detective and not a Bant Merfolk for those of us, myself included, who want the Bant Merfolk Commander. Last, certainly not least, we have
Último mazo.
Nelly Borca.
Nelly Borca, por 4, 1, 2, 4, vigilancia. Nelly Borca, ataque, sospecha de una criatura, luego go at all. Oh, esta mola. Un multiplayer. Cuando una más criaturas que controla el oponente haga en combate a uno o más de tus oponentes, su controlador roba cartas. Bueno.
You get to suspect a creature, and then goad all suspected creatures, and then it has that bonus down at the bottom for people attacking each other and getting angry and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's nice that you always benefit.
Pero
right?
esto es
When
SDH, esto no, o sea, esto es todo Commander.
And finds someone else to attack. It's like you even though you're not taking damage or really involved in that combat, you
Esto
get
es
to
todo
draw a bonus
Commander,
card,
todo Commander.
right? To really fuel it up. And this is, you can see here with Nelly how Mark was talking about earlier of aggression and how do we cause aggression. It's one of the things in Commander games you see a lot of times people all just want to be sitting back.
Yep.
Goads really become a popular mechanic because it forces combat, and then Nelly also just like because it's like if they only leave back one blocker.
Les va a durar infinito el streaming. Bueno, pero es que encima ahora tienen que hablar de los Special Guests. Que los Special Guests sí que van a ser dramáticos. Por cierto, ya está la aspirina drogándose. Evidencia 8. Ya quiere ciclar 2 Street Raid y tirarlo por uno, el Analyze de Polen, Ya está drogándose, las aspirinas. El Living End sale fijo. ¿Qué hace el Polen? A ver, la carta es... Han sacado una nueva habilidad que es Evidencias, que es que tienes que exiliar cartas de tu cementerio de coste 8 hasta que sumen 8 o más, ¿no? En plan, 2 Street Raids suman 10, pues haces el Evidencia, ¿no? Y esto es, por uno buscas básica, y si hiciste la Evidencia, buscas básica o criatura. Y lo pones en mano y te lo pones en mano.
We still have a bunch of stuff to talk about, and we're going to keep talking about it. Right now...
Te permite buscar el Charles. A ver, Joan, por favor, no puedes llevar cartas de coste 3 o menos en barajas de cascada. Un saludo.
So I'm going to throw this to Past Blake to talk about the whole puzzle experience. We've hinted at it. Some pieces of the puzzle
Literalmente-
people have seen.
Literalmente está con el polen, literalmente.
That is really cool and really
No he visto
depth,
todavía ni una carta buena. La
really fun experience
Jaya
for
no, ¿cómo se
people.
llama?
So I'm gonna throw
La
it to
Planeswalker
Pat
negra
Blake
blanca es
and Mark
buena.
Gottlieb to
La
talk
calle es
about
buena,
that
¿eh?
puzzle experience.
Y el Assassin's Trophy es buena.
Thanks, Future Blake. We are indeed here to
Puzzle
talk about
Talk.
the Murders at Karlov Manor puzzle experience that is woven into the set. And here to tell us a bit more about that puzzle experience is the architect of said puzzle, Mark Gottlieb. And to get us started so people know what they're in for, Mark, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background with puzzles?
Great. Yeah. I have been passionate about puzzles my entire life. Back in the day, I wrote my undergraduate thesis at MIT
hace la calle?
about constructing puzzles and published a couple of New York Times crossword puzzles. I've been on staff at Games Magazine. I've written puzzles for
No, es el
Championships,
director de
Microsoft
marketing.
Puzzle Hunt,
Es el
5
otro
different
tipo.
MIT Mystery Hunts.
¿Qué hace la calle?
And I've
Por
been a member
4 un
of the
3.
National Puzzlers
Espera,
League for
voy
over
a
30 years.
bajar un poco el
So
volumen de este
people should
loco.
expect a challenge, certainly.
Por 4 Ultra con 3, cuando una o más criaturas que tú controles y o criaturas cartas en tu cementerio sean puestas en el exilio, tú puedes elegir que esa criatura, tú puedes elegir una criatura de entre ellas. Si lo haces, crea un token que es una copia de ellas. Es decir, te haces una reliquia de progenitor. Me invento cartas, que esto lo normal es cogerlo con una de la mesa, ¿vale? Te matan un bicho de la mesa, pues se vuelve y vuelve siendo una copia y con volar. Tienes una carta en el cementerio, la exilias con una reliquia del Progenitus, la pones en mesa con volar, ¿vale? Con volar, correcto. Más 2, Surveil 2 y exilias una carta de un cementerio. Es decir, puedes tirar criaturas al cementerio y los exilias. O exiliarle los bichos del cementerio al otro, que también va bien. Léela bien. ¿Qué pasa? Léela bien. Hasta el final del turno, target token. Necesitas un token. Vale. No pones un token. Conviertes un token que tú controles. Nada. O sea, no es una castaña.
Each puzzle page on the website will have a box where you can submit an answer to see if you solved the puzzle correctly, and it'll tell you. And the box will also accept partial answers, so if you think you found a clue or an intermediate message, you can enter it there, and the website might tell you, hey, you're on the right track, keep going.
All right. And then are there hints if someone gets stuck? Can they get a little push in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely. The website has some optional puzzle information that solvers can access. You can think of these as hints. I like to think of them.
No me disgusta aún así la calle,
Customize the difficulty of the puzzle you want to solve. If you want to solve on hard mode, just don't click the buttons. If you don't have time for that, or you think the puzzle's a bit underclued, just get the extra info. That's why we put it there.
All right. So some of the geniuses are in our community. Go out there, they solve this puzzle. What do they get at the end?
So I do want to emphasize this isn't a race. It's not a contest. The bonus here isn't a prize you get for solving the puzzles. The bonus here is that, hey, there are a bunch of extra free puzzles.
Que tengan los mazos recogidos.
But that being said, after the 13th puzzle drops, as soon as one person anywhere in the world submits a correct solution for it, we will release a bonus web fiction epilogue that points to the future of the game. So there is a collective global reward of sorts.
All right, so the puzzle is its own reward, but also there's a reward. So, all right, well, thank you, Mark, for walking us through this. Remember, the Murders at Karlov Manor puzzle kicks off February 2nd at pre-releases at your local game store. So definitely check those out. Now back to you, Future Blake. All right, thank you, Past Blake and Mark Gottlieb, for that look at the puzzle strewn into Murders at Karlov Manor. We got a couple things left we are going to talk about here in the present at this time.
I'm excited for the puzzle. I worked on the team that did the puzzles. I'm very excited for the puzzles.
Ya está Maro drogándose. Estaba en el equipo de los puzzles. Quiero ya que lleguen los puzzles. Maro, la coca. Maro, la coca.
So, Mike, real quick.
No, we were the special guest.
You are the special guest.
So let's talk about these other special
Maro, los otros Special Game, Maro, no tú. Los otros, Maro. Tú trabajas aquí, Maro.
So what are special guests?
Yeah, so Special Guest debuted with Lost Caverns of Ixalan, so just the set prior to Murders at Karlov Manor. And what they are is we wanted to go back and take and find cards that are reprints. They're all reprints in terms of mechanically they've existed in Magic before, and bring them into the new borderless style, update their art, really just give them a new look, a new feel. And so that's what we did. It's cards that are beloved, cards that we wanted to bring back into Magic. It doesn't change their legality, right? So
and they're in the world of the set that they're in, right?
Right.
Yeah. Typically, we've updated their style, so these ones will be more Ravnica feeling. We're doing, and there's 10 cards. I think we'll look at
10 Special Guesses.
We're gonna look at all 10. So these
Vamos a ver todas las 10 ahora,
familiar cards that
Todas,
you love, but like I said, we've given them new art, and you can find them in the play boosters, in non-foil, and then in collector boosters and foil.
And these are part of the new kind of updated list, right?
Yeah, right. So in the play booster itself, we've updated the list. We've really trimmed it back. So it's only the reprint cards on the list are 40 cards, 30 commons / uncommons, and then 10 rare / mythics. And then we have additionally these 10 special guests. So about 1 in every 7 packs, instead of a common, you will get either one of the 40 reprint cards from the list.
40 cartas. 40 cartas. Han reducido la lista a 40.
Play boosters, they're playable. In limited, they're playable.
Yeah,
All these are playable.
Recordemos, cartas jugables en limitado y en Timeles. Timeles. ¿Cómo? El formato de moda, correcto.
Okay, hey, how do we add, a splash of fun variants? Go back and pick some classic cards, and that's one of the reasons we trimmed.
Sí, son reediciones, pero con un nuevo
On the
arte.
bottom left corner, down to 40. Previously, it was 300.
Yeah.
Too much variance, too hard to keep and make sure that limited was always as awesome as it could be. By bringing the list down to 40, it really let us hit all those limited play goals as well.
Yep. All right. No further ado. Let's see the 10 cards that are special guests.
Venga, los Special Guests. Vamos para allá.
Crashing Footfalls, but there are
Bueno, ya lo dijo Ferrero, El Living End seguro. Ya lo había dicho Ferre,
Yeah, and so like to me, a card like Victimize
Lo había
is
dicho,
a great way to show off. Like, oh, once again, that's a name that if it wasn't already used so many years ago, would have been perfect in Murders at Karlov Manor. And so you can see here how that's brought in.
No faltan
Mark's
30
favorite,
más.
Gamble, always talking about
Son
Gamble
10.
and,
No. Son 10 Special Guests. Las otras 30 cartas son cartas de The List.
But yeah, just a lot of great cards. Tireless Tracker, right? Returns, and so there's a place where it's like, oh, you can see mechanics from the past returning here and working.
El Ghostly Prison dramático, para la arena.
Right. Once again, probably. I mean, besides Landfall, which right.
Ghostly Prison, Fabricate, Show and Tell, Tragic Sleep, Victimizar, Fiel of the Dead, Drowning the Lock, Tireless Tracker, Crashing Footholds y el Gamble. Y el Show and Tell para Timeles, ¿qué? Esto sale en el mall, sale en el mall. Sale en el mall.
And I see the questions in chat about will these be on Arena? For the most part, the answer is yes. So what Arena is doing with special guests is there will be some tweaks here and there where this card or that card may not be included.
Ya, justo lo está diciendo ahora. Va a estar en la arena, Timeles, bla, 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 bla. Lo está diciendo ahora. Correcto.
On their social media and on the blog, what those changes are between the special guests and this. It's not the whole list. It's a couple cards.
Yeah, there's a dedicated article talking about the list, talking about special.
Ha dicho que no salen todas en el arena.
In there talks exactly about Arena and some of those swap outs that they did.
Hostia puta, que subnormales son, tío.
And then finally for this show, I know we've been
Pero
getting a lot of
entonces
questions about this right here. which some people might have been eyeing, which is the Cluedo. It's called both Clue and Cluedo because that's the name of the product in various parts of the world. So if you hear us say Cluedo, it's Clue, Cluedo. Those are pretty much interchangeable. But it is this very cool, standalone, self-contained game that, Mike, tell us a little bit how this works.
Yeah, so one of the things that we got excited about, of course, is like when you think murder mystery, right? I think the game we all played as kids was Clue.
Claro, es que te iba a decir. Te iba a decir justo eso, Camilo, que es que el limitado ya lo están estafando. ¿El Cluedo cuánto vale? No tenemos precio todavía de distribuidora.
The elements of Magic with Clue, and we've sort of brought the best of both together. They come in this awesome box, but there's no game board, right? And so instead, you in this box you get.
Guárdame uno, vale.
Right, and you take two.
Sale un Cluedo, sí.
And you shuffle them together.
¿Tú también quieres uno?
Who's played Jumpstart? It's sort of that same sort of feel, and that's your deck that comes with the product. And then you have, as we see here, the.
Oh, it looks like that. Yep.
Yeah, right. So that's the Simic.
Hostia puta, tío, pero ¿cómo puedes ser tan idiota de enseñarme a quitarlo, tío?
Yeah, always playing with the angle. So there's 20 possible of those. Two Simic.
Hay 20 mazos posibles.
Right.
You'll get one of these in here.
Right, and then you get 8 of the right.
The boosters.
Yep.
Gracias a todos por la raíz.
Right. So
básicamente es un Jumpstart que le han cambiado el nombre, correcto, sí.
You shuffle them together. And then there's the murder mystery piece of it, right?
Yeah.
You have, I think we showed off Mastermind Plum, the knife, and the library, right? And so you put those into your little confidential envelope there, right? That's solving it.
Yep.
And then you pass out the rest of the cards. There's 21 in total.
It's got the Clue,
you have your notepad, right? But there's no board. Instead, the way that you ask questions is by attacking the other players, right? And so
you play Magic.
You play Magic. You're right. You play lands. You cast creatures, right? And when those creatures attack successfully, when they deal combat damage, that is how you get to ask a question, right? And you'll say things like, Blake, do you have Mastermind Plum?
Está contando mierdas del Cluedo, tío.
And you would look at your hand and well, if that was your hand, then you could
These would go near, yeah.
Right. If they were all in there, you wouldn't have any of them, and so you would say no.
Que venías a ver el replay, pues esto sigue, amigo. Esto sigue. Lo que sí que creo que esto ya acaba, le debe de quedar 10 minutitos.
Right? Because you can win the game by playing a game of Magic and just knocking all of your opponents to 0, right? Or you can win by successfully figuring out, it was Mastermind Plum in the library with the knife, right?
Mira.
And so
Mastermind Plan por 3-1-2. Cuando el Mastermind ataque, exilia una carta de un cementerio. Si es un artefacto, crea un tesoro. Cuando tú lances un hechizo, si se usó hechizo de un tesoro, tú robas una carta y pierdes una vida. Bueno. Knife. Bueno.
And so it's fun. It's just, it's a new way to play Magic. I really like that you have motivation for attacking, which of course, once again, in multiplayer is always a thing.
Biblioteca. La biblioteca está girada, te da azul o rojo, por 4 investigas.
Yeah, right.
Sí, lo ha dicho, sí. It's great for EDH, lo ha dicho.
When you play with the contents of the box, so it's fun, it's fast, it's great to play again and again, and I'm just really thrilled with how the product came out in total. And of course, you do get with each one a foil, a foil Shockland, one of the 10. That's not used in the gameplay portion. It's just
cool little bonus.
Yeah, it's a cool bonus. We want people to try out and have a fun time with it. So.
Me encanta, tío. En plan, no, sí. Y hay una Shockland para que. Es como un bonus. Porque si no le metéis por lo menos 10 euritos a la caja, no vendéis esto, vamos, ni a tiros. Si no metéis una cartita de 10 euros, no vendes esto en tu vida. Titán.
couple things.
Que están las tiendas
So there are
comiéndose
a
el
bunch of
Jump
cool
Star
components in here.
así,
Your little
tra, tra,
thing to
tra, tra,
hide
tra.
your pad,
Y sacáis un nuevo Jump
passes,
Star que se llama
your
Cluedo.
cards,
Ay, Dios
got the
mío.
confidence
Ay, Dios
sleeve, of
mío.
course. And then, so there are unique cards in this product, and they are both pieces to play the clue portion and pieces to play the magic portion. So we have some preview cards, so let's put some of these up so we can talk a little bit about the unique cards.
¿Cómo?
This is Mastermind
¿En salseo
Club.
primero?
Right.
Si esto ya lo hemos hablado de esta
Mastermind
carta.
Slum Here, you can see it's a magic card. So beyond, like when you're playing the clue version itself, it ends up just, either in somebody's not magic hand,
Yeah.
but it's one of
Their
the
hidden
Their hidden
information.
information, right?
Yep.
Or it could end up in the confidential answer envelope.
Yep.
Right, and so it's used for that. But then beyond that, we're like, hey, this is a great opportunity to bring these characters that people love from Clue into Magic. And so you can see here we brought them through Universes Beyond. We've given them design, so that way you can build a Clue deck, use them to build a Commander deck. They're new, brand new Magic cards. So each of the 6 characters are brand new, as well as the 10 lands.
Yep.
Now the five weapons that we included, those are both in Murders at Karlov Manor and in the Clue product. So it's sort of
145 personas. Malo será que a nadie le sobre un
So we're
Prime,
also going to show up because you got to have
145 personas y a nadie le sobra un Prime.
So let's show off a location as well. This is the library.
This is the library, blue-red, right? I think that one of the fun things the team got to do is say, all right.
What color is the
Yeah,
room?
well, right. And we added a 10th room, like the classic.
Poco la toca el sorteo, sí. Mira, me ha tocado el sorteo esta mañana de un Negate Foil de Ferre.
Yep.
Right, so that was.
You just get one room per guild.
Yeah,
Ahí están los primes. Vamos.
So,
Gracias, Freakman.
You can go and make your own color map of how you would have laid out the guilds. I will say that the secret passage is the 10th.
Makes sense.
That's the 10th one.
I know what guild that is.
Who knows? Who knows? That's for those real detectives out there to figure out.
Te digo una cosa. Me enseñas esta carta hace un año y digo que es fake.
They add manners of the appropriate color.
¿Sí o qué?
For tap, you can investigate. So once again, you don't use that as part. These end up.
Claro que eres sub, cabrón, si te acabo de regalar una suscripción.
But, you can
Te brilla la pelada, Gachi.
for
Clue
playing.
lands.
They're clue lands, right? And I super love that they had sort of
Iván
had that same
21
top-down
Primes.
Y van 21 Primes, ojo,
familiar with the board game, right? That was a really cool graphic design element.
So
that we
here's
got to
a
do.
real quick fun behind the scenes. Booster Fun, when they're doing things, they make a lot of different ideas because
Yeah.
not all of them get used. And
Sí,
they
mira.
came up with the idea
Jason
of
Statham, ahí le
clue
tienes.
before we even knew
Jason
about
Statham total.
the clue.
Oh, nice.
And we all thought they were cool, and then this came up like, oh, we got to do the clue land with clue.
Right. You're right. It was just such a perfect match, and you can tell since you investigate, they make clues.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's really. It's really
And the
all come
weapons
together.
are clues.
No, no, no
weapons are
lloro.
Clues. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yep.
when we take a look at the knife.
Let's take a look at the knife.
Ahí está el knife,
So you can see here it's artifact clue equipment.
Mientras sea tu turno, la criatura tiene +1 +0 y first strike. Si pagas 2, robas una carta. Equipar 2.
In this case, draw
Knife.
card. And then they, they're uncommons. They have fun abilities. And so, yeah, I think it's really great. Now, the one weapon we didn't include was the revolver. It wasn't part of Murders at Karlov Manor because
¿Alguna carta relevante o edición Bulk? Hay alguna buena, Hay alguna buena.
mainstream Magic, and so we didn't have a revolver design, so we left it out of here, but instead just added that 10th land, so it's sort of there's the right number of sort of information that you need to go and
Hay varias cartas buenas. Han sacado el Mana Leak para Pioneer. Mana Leak que exilia. Han sacado el Assassin's Trophy como reprint. Han sacado templos fecheables. Han sacado la carta esta que acaba de poner aquí Dritchil.
They are Commander legal, Legacy legal, so those
Commander y Legacy legal, las cartas del Cluedo.
Eternal legal. Yeah, so
¿Cuál es el Mana Leak que dices?
and we did that because for one, the only place that you can find
¿Cómo que cuál es el Mana Leak que digo?
is in the
Pues
clue product
este.
itself, right?
Por 2, contra este hechizo objetivo cuando que su control pague 3 y si el hechizo ha sido contrarrestado se exilia.
Yeah, we didn't want to make that standard legal, right? We're not printing too many of these, from the get-go, and so right, we didn't want it to be standard legal for a number of reasons, and also too, I think when you're trying, when you have sort of this one chance to create a design for a card from such a classic brand, right? Clue's celebrating its 75th anniversary.
Manali, como si no hubiera vetos. ¿Sabes que el veto no contrarresta la Seoldred? ¿Sabes que el veto no contrarresta el Mayhem Devil? ¿Sabes que el veto no contrarresta criaturas? Callado. Tengo que decirte todas las criaturas legales en Pioneer. Todas y cada una. El Grisfang. Te digo todas y cada una de las criaturas. El Gearhulk. Amalias.
And so there's one other type of card in this which we haven't talked about. Is there are unique cards which are gameplay cards. So much like the Jumpstart cards, and we have a preview of one of these.
Otra más. Lavinia Foil to Conspiracy. Por 3-1-2-3 vigilancia. Cuando tú lances tu segundo hechizo, investiga. Si pagas 2. O sea, si lo giras, te da 2 manás. Pero solo durante el turno del oponente.
I mentioned that they have 2 different versions, right? So there's going to be a Simic Combine and a second version of Simic Combine, or as we're looking here, an Azorius and a second version.
Para partir las clues, sí.
Each one of the rares, we made 20
Pero cartas solo que se puede jugar solo en Legacy. Esto a quién coño le importa.
So,
Y en Commander.
If you open up an Azorius packet, not all of them will have Lavinia in it, right? There's a second Azorius rare as well. And then we also made 10 new uncommons. Now those uncommons are shared, so both Azorius packets will have the.
Esta mala está en Commander.
So there's basically
Pone each turn en tu turno y lo de tus oponentes. Esta carta en Commander no está tan mal. No está tan mal.
You get 8 of those in each product, so if you want.
Y para la solitude, ojito. Puedes exiliarlo con la solitude también. No se nos olvide.
Get that. So, and once again, they're pretty fun. You can see there that we brought in the watermark is back, right? We really wanted to theme them to the appropriate Ravnica guild, and then the rest of the Azorius themed booster that you get is pulling from Ravnica cards from. It's great now that we've been back to Ravnica a number of times.
Yep.
There's a lot of good designs that we can tap into to build out these packs to shuffle together and make for a fun gameplay experience, right? Oh, good.
Yeah, I just want to stress, Reggie led this product, and we tried really, really hard to just make a really fun Magic variant.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've enjoyed, Plane Chase or Arch Enemy, one of the fun things about Magic is that we can add extra elements on, and this really is something new we're trying, where we're taking this other thing, Clue, and really weaving it into a Magic experience.
Yeah.
And so I know some people were a little. It's a Magic variant. That's what you're playing. You're playing Magic. We've added some Clue elements on, so there definitely is Clue to it. So it's a combination, but it's a fun Magic variant. So if you enjoy playing with your friends and having this is just a fun variant. I heartily recommend you trying it. It's super fun.
And everything you need to play is found in one of these.
Yeah.
You get every one of these suspects, locations, and weapons.
Yeah, all 21. Yep.
All 21 come in one of these, and then you've got these, this notepad for tracking your clues. You get a bunch of these. These cool little things are great. So, like you said, you can replay it then.
Right. You can replay it if you want. You can leave the decks that you've shuffled together like that. You can pull them apart and mix and match them that way. You can build your own decks, right?
Your own decks.
You can just build your own decks. You can and depending on the type of game you want, you can bring decks of any sort of power level. I'd encourage you.
Ya hemos hablado del novelista.
Because while there is another way.
Esta hemos dicho que puede ser con Bauble, sí. Esta con.
Primary way that you do it is just by attacking.
Yep.
Right.
Con la de que todo tiene un trigger adicional.
Vigilance. That's a great mechanic.
Chapando un tesoro, ¿no? Chapas un tesoro, te da 2 rojos, no sé qué, contador.
And I don't know if I highlighted this. One of the ways I think the game, innovated on the original Clue was if you do make your final accusation and you're wrong, in classic Clue, you're out of the game.
Yeah.
Right? And my 6-year-old gets to experience this a lot. Where he feels like he has it solved after 15 minutes, and then he has to sit there while we finish the game. Here, though, if you guess wrong, if you make that final accusation wrong, you still can play because you can just kill everyone else. And sure, you didn't solve the mystery, but
you can keep playing Magic.
You can keep playing Magic, and so that's one of the ways that we really tried to marry the fun.
Not more lies, sin luck. No more lies. Está en el Twitter de Salseo.
Finally, after an hour and 15 minutes, or hour and a half if you count the debut, is everything we have to share today on about Murders at Karlov Manor. But we have another week plus of previews coming up. Previews in earnest start today. You're going to start seeing them around the internet. If you head to dailymtg.com, there's a bunch of useful tools there and articles. We've got your collecting article. We've got your
Peor que el
first,
Manalik.
preview article. We've
Oye,
got,
obviamente,
the Where
para
to
Modern
Find
es peor,
article,
sí.
which tells you where previews are going to be around the internet and all the places, so you can track those down. We've got stories. So the killer was revealed today, but the story's not over. So there are a couple more episodes after this talking about the fallout, what happens once Alquist Prof figures things out, because there's more to come. And of course, there's the puzzle experience, which is going to be ongoing starting at the pre-release. And then additionally, we're doing a cool thing with the card image gallery for those of you who love limited out there. One of the big pieces of feedback we always get is that on the last day, there's a big dump of a bunch of commons, and then people start figuring out the limited format. But we're going to be seeding commons straight into the card image gallery, also found on dailympg.com, every day. That are just going to be commons that weren't previewed anywhere else. And we'll kind of roll those out slowly over preview season so that you can start getting a feel for the limited environment in addition to seeing the cool, powerful cards. That is everything I have. Next week, we're going to be back. Mike, you're going to be back again.
Yeah, we get to play some Clue.
We're going to actually play Clue. So if Clue sounds intriguing, but you want to see how it actually plays, we're going to do that next week. So next week, right here, 10 a.m. Pacific time, we're going to be battling. Reggie will be here as well.
Lleva las mismas zapatillas, sí.
To play Clue.
Lo hemos dicho
and Magic
antes.
All together in one.
Y voy a decir algo.
See you next week.
A ver, ahí, a Madera Noble, que saquen algo parecido al Kumano, porque si desaparece la rotación, la monorred pasa a ser una mierda. Solo voy a decir una carta, que es brutal, y no se está jugando ahora mismo, en estándar. Y esta carta es legal en estándar, y nadie la juega. O sea, por favor, dejemos de llorar. Imagina un estándar en el que el Stoke de Flames... Nadie lo juega y es legal. Por favor, basta ya, O sea, ya está bien. O sea, podrías estar jugando en tu baraja mono red 4 stock de Flames y se juegan 0 stock de Flames. Ya, claro que gana igual, pues a eso voy. Que ok, rota el Kumano. Bueno, tío, pues si rota el Kumano, igual una carta tan mala como el stock de Flames empieza a jugarse, ¿sabes? Que buscamos todo. El que ganó el RCQ de Moria llevaba stock de Flames. No me suena, lo siento. No conozco esa tienda. Bueno. ¿Quién dijo que no la juego? Mencho, ¿quién te conoce, por favor? Solo se conoce a Fighty. Hostias. Sacro Mencho. Pero acaba de salir aquí, ojo, exclamación 50. Pensé que exclamación 50 era el vídeo del Branca y resulta que es una compra de Ferrero que se gastó 500 euros en March on Machines y no compró ninguna de las buenas. Hostia puta. Es que ni las infrecuentes, el cabrón, No compró ni el que da +1 +0 igual. Hostia, tío. ¿Cómo pillar 40 de algo? En preorder se pueden pillar 40. Sí. En preorder se puede pillar de todo. Los vendedores ponen un montón. Sí compré, pero no en esta foto. Grande, Ferre. Para de Ferre. Así sí. Bueno, pues mañana más y mejor, chicos. Nos vemos mañana. Nos vemos mañana. Mañana. Remerita, la bancas. Amarillo Adidas. Yo te creo, hermana, de libro. De manual. Así que nada, mañana 9 de la mañana. Nos vemos en 13 horas y 25 minutos. ¿Qué dices del Debes? Pues un robo, como todo lo que tiene que ver con Messi. Todo un robo. Sin novedad.
Dame una goma.
Nos vemos, chicos. Chao. Chao, 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 chao.